Welcome everyone, Christine here on Serious Gaming with my World of Warcraft The Burning Crusade Classic Guide for Protection Warriors. Gearing Up Guide for Pre-Raid, Tier 4 and Tier 5 Best in Slot. But before I get into the gear, a couple of things that are worth mentioning. First is on the issue of dual wield tanking. Now of course a lot of people right now in Classic are playing as dual wield tanks as Fury. Is that going to be viable in the Burning Crusade? Well, probably not as Fury. Whether or not you could use it in raids depends really on the values you're dealing with. My guess is probably not in most cases, though maybe there's a couple of bosses where you could use it, especially as an off-tank to gain more threat, but for the most part I don't think it is really going to be viable, for the most part. But that depends on the guilds. I mean, there's some crazy things people have done on private servers for vanilla, for Burning Crusade, and so on. There are some crazy things people have been able to do on private servers, and then even more crazier things that they've been able to do on Classic. So I think that we have to wait and see. And that is something that can apply to a lot of things. Like, there's a lot of potential for a lot of classes. There's a lot of potential for some crazy things that no one would have imagined. Certainly not on retail, not even on private servers. Depends a lot on the damage, depends on the HP, the armor, all that kind of stuff, so we have to wait and see. Now this guide is built on the assumption you're going to want to tackle with the one-handed weapon and shield, and I'm also not counting any gear you might have coming over from Classic to Burning Crusade, so this is for a fresh character. I will do a separate video on the issue of what gear is useful, what's important to have coming over from Classic to the Burning Crusade, but that's a separate issue. Depends on how Blizzard ends up doing it. So probably closer to when we get official confirmation, closer to release, and we have an understanding of how Blizzard's going to do everything. That's when I'll probably talk about that. But of course, there is one item that is worth talking about because you obviously can acquire it during the Burning Crusade itself, and that's Thunder Fury. Very popular subject. Is Thunder Fury worth using? It depends. It depends a lot on the proc rate. See, I've played with Thunder Fury on vanilla private server, and it's easy mode compared to anything else. It's ridiculously powerful as a weapon. Some people have done calculations saying like, oh, it's 200 threat per second or thereabouts. My view of Thunder Fury in the Burning Crusade is that if it has a proc rate similar to the one that exists in Classic, so if it's not changed, then it's probably, I don't know, 100 threat per second gain on single target, and for warriors, of course, even when tanking multiple targets. It's so good of a weapon that even paladins would want to use it for single target threat per second. In AoE situations, they'd want to use a spell power weapon, but for single target threat, yeah, they could use Thunder Fury until, like, I don't know, late tier 5, early tier 6. And similar idea for warriors. If you get Thunder Fury, you're probably going to use it until tier 6, until you get the tanking weapon from Supremus, maybe even beyond that, really. I mean, some people use Thunder Fury on retail Burning Crusade until Zulaman, so it could be very hard to actually replace this with a weapon that is capable of doing more threat than it is. But it depends a lot on the proc rate. Now, I believe, if I remember correctly, that on retail, Blizzard did end up nerfing Thunder Fury quite a bit, so if it's a nerfed state, probably not as much, though you'd still want to use it for tier 4, maybe large parts of tier 5, but it wouldn't be as powerful. Then we have the matter of how strong protection warriors are. Well, they are the best tanks by far initially. They start with the highest survivability, good HP, good avoidance, damage reduction thanks to defensive stance, and they are uncrushable even without any gear because of shield block. So that is a significant advantage, which gives you a lot of flexibility with your early gear in pre-raid. You can't totally screw up a warrior, whereas you can screw up a druid or a paladin in terms of pre-raid gearing and end up being a much weaker tank as a result of it. Warriors just have a lot more flexibility early on. And when Burning Crusade Classic launches, they will be the best tanks by far for tier 4 and tier 5 progression. It wouldn't surprise me actually to see many of the guilds that are going to zerg the content to kill Kael'thas and Lady Vashj as quickly as possible, just using tanking teams purely made up of warriors, or majority warriors. I mean, obviously we're talking 2 or 3 people, but still. Point stands, they're very powerful. Though, once paladins and druids catch up, thanks to gear, they scale well with gear, they're very gear dependent, but they do scale well with it. Once druids and paladins get their gearing sorted out, they suddenly become better than warriors. I'd say that's with late tier 5 gear, early tier 6 gear for protection paladins and druids. So warriors start out strong, but they don't have lasting power, I guess you could say. And that is obviously something people should be aware of. But if you want to play a tank that almost everyone agrees can tank the entirety of the content without any issues, if you want to play a tank that has significant advantages on certain bosses because of the mechanics of those bosses, be it certain bosses that require spell reflect, bosses that fear, bosses where having last stand and shield wall can give you a significant advantage, all that kind of stuff, then play a warrior. They do have that going for them. Just understand that on retail, with the release of Sunwell Plateau, druids suddenly became the best tanks in the game. I think for classic, warriors are going to be very, very strong for progression, tier 4 and tier 5, but with speed runs, with tier 6 and all that, they're going to end up being weaker than druids and paladins. So just be aware of that. Anyway, let's talk about gearing pre-raid. The add-on here is called WoW Equip. It's very useful to be able to sort your character's gear out. Link in the description. I imagine for Classic, though, a lot of people would be using character planners, so link to that as well in the description once it gets updated for the Burning Crusade, of course. Anyway, helmet, starting with that, Myrmidon's headdress. You do this by getting a quest right outside of Steam Vault's normal and then doing the instance. It's a good option because it has 37 stamina, 33 defense rating, which is on the higher end of things, and 17 strength to improve your threat. So it's a nice middle ground between threat and survivability. You can obviously use something else, but I personally prefer this just because it's that nice solid middle ground. Helm enchant 16 defense rating and 17 dodge rating from Keepers of Time Revered. Purple gem with 4 agility and 6 stamina, and a meta gem with 18 stamina. And stun resist. So that's what I'd go for. Gloves. Also from Steam Vault's normal, so you can get 2 for the price of 1. Basically, gauntlets of the bolt. 17 strength, 16 agility, 31 stamina, 2 gem sockets, and 14 defense. Now, the defense is not as great as it could be, but because of the strength and the agility, these are probably the best gloves to use as a warrior pre-raid. Again, a middle ground between survivability and threat. The gem sockets, I think these gloves are probably even worth using over tier 4 if you're just thinking about pure survivability. They're pretty good. Now, in terms of your glove enchant, yes, you can go for something like agility or 2% threat if that's available. Now, that's an AQ enchant that on retail Burning Crusade only became available with the release of patch 2.2 for servers that didn't have AQ open, so it can be tricky to acquire it. If you can get it, you can get that. If you can't, you can get agility or you can get 8 stamina or something like that. You can be a bit lazy with the glove enchant. It's not as important as some other pieces. Belt, slave pins, heroic girdle of the immovable. You can use this until tier 6, honestly, this particular belt, depending on how lucky you are with some rating belts. 17 strength, 33 stamina, 2 gem sockets, 18 defense rating, and 12 block rating. Alternatively, if you're not doing heroic dungeons, Shatari Vindicator's Waistguard, which you get from the key for Arcatraz quest chain, is also a fairly solid option with 33 stamina, good defense rating, good block rating, and block value for some extra threat. You can use that, especially as a threat piece over the Girdle of the Immovable. Necklace. Natasha's Battle Chain. There is a Scryer's version from a quest in Netherstorm that has pretty much the exact same stats, just 2 extra defense. This one is from a quest from Blade's Edge Mountains, and it has high stamina, 37 stamina, 13 defense rating, 15 block value. Now, this is useful, obviously, as more of a friend neck. There are other options, the one from Scenario Expedition if you want some dodge, but this is a fairly solid option, high stamina, and a decent amount of block value that you can use. Shoulders, Fan Blade Pauldrons from Akanai Crypts, heroic from the first boss. Akanai Crypts is not a hard heroic if you'd have a decent group, as in having 2 melee, 1 cast or something like those lines. If you can clear it within a reasonable time frame, you should farm these shoulders. They have high defense, they have parry rating, they have strength, 22 stamina, 2 gem sockets, and I've put the Aldor Exalted enchant, 15 dodge rating and 10 defense rating on that. And I've put a purple gem for agility, 6 stamina, and a 12 stamina gem. Gotten that socket bonus, a free parry rating. Very useful, very powerful shoulders, and these shoulders, when you're building a resistance gear set for Hydras as an example, these are probably the shoulders that you'd be using if you're struggling with getting enough defense, because you can get these, they have good enough defense. You can get these, you can put 2 yellow defense rating gems and get enough defense rating to get immune to critical blows. Pants, Time Warden's leggings from Keepers of Time Revered. 40 stamina enchant on these. 57 stamina by default. That's very high with free gem sockets. Very powerful pants. There are some options, Felsteel leggings as an example, but I think these ones win out. Just the ridiculous amount of stamina that these have on them make them very powerful. 11 dodge rating as well helps out, and 18 defense rating. So fairly solid option. Felsteel is another option. Felsteel is an option for helmet, for gloves, for pants. You can use that if you're very cheap, by the way. If you don't want to bother with dungeons at all, you can use that. But for the most part, getting these is a perfectly fine choice. Boots of the Colossus. Now, these are annoying. They're good. 22 strength, 27 stamina, 19 defense, 2 gem sockets. Very powerful boots. Best in slot pre-raid. Alternatively, there are some green boots from a quest in Netherstorm that are only slightly worse and are a lot easier to acquire than these ones. These are from the first boss of Mana Tomb's Heroic. So that's a nightmare to do. Now, not so much, considering everything. I really haven't looked at items that, this requires you to do this very annoying instance, completely clear it out. But these first boss can be a tricky affair to get them, but they're very much worth it. Or you can use the green ones. That's also an option. Cloak, Devil Shark Cape, Steam Volts Normal. Yes, enjoy the Steam Volts Normal. You'll get a helmet, you'll get gloves, and you'll get a cloak that you probably will want to use until tier 6, actually. And the reason is high defense, high dodge, good stamina, good block value, almost 30 block value on this. Put 12 agility. I think as a warrior, you'll probably want to put 12 agility. Maybe you could consider armor. To be honest, I think 12 agility is probably very solid enough as a warrior. You could put dodge rating, you could put armor. I think agility is just the best option because, you gain a bit in terms of your avoidance, but also improve your threat. Chest piece. Breastplate of the Bold. 23 strength, 21 agility, 33 stamina, 3 gem sockets. Get defense rating on the chest. Yes, it has a decent enough defense rating, 19, but initially when you're gearing up, you're going to struggle quite a bit in terms of your defense rating as a warrior because you're going to want to make sacrifices for the sake of threat, either agility or hit or anything like that. So getting defense rating on chest and losing 150 HP is really worth it, to be honest. It's not an expensive enchant. It's fairly easy enough to get. Ring, Crystal Band of Valor. Again, Mana Tomb's Heroic. This is from, the second boss of Mana Tomb's Heroic. And the second ring is from Lower City Exalted. This is best in slot by far away, the second one, the Shapeshifter Signet. Alternatively, for rings, you have things like Wind Trader's Band or Elementium Band of Sentry. One of these is from a quest from Netherstorm. The other one is from Alcatraz, normal from the final boss. Those are some easier options in some ways to acquire. But these are the 2 rings, the Crystal Band of Valor and the Shapeshifter Signet, that you want to use. Now, you might want to have a second defense ring, of course, for certain situations where you might just want that extra survivability, but the expertise rating on this cannot be understated. It's very damn powerful. Trinkets, Goblin, Rocket, Launchers, 2 of them. Now, of course, when you're starting a character, you're probably not going to go full-on crazy. Let's power level engineering, let's get 2 trinkets, each of which can cost 1k gold. Probably not going to do that. You're going to have other priorities. Alternatively, you can use something like Adamantite Fingering. This is from Shadow Labyrinth Normal, from the second boss. You can also get the Bad Trinket, Gnomergon Auto Blocker 600 for some block value for threat. Or you can get something like the Compass from the final boss of Underbog Heroic. Or you can get a Regal Protectorate from Hellfire Peninsula. Now, many warriors will probably want the Crit Trinket because it's difficult enough to replace it. But to be honest, if you don't get Regal Protectorate, you're going to get screwed in some way in terms of building your resistance gear set. So getting that might be worth it. But to be honest, your end goal should be to get these Goblin rocket launchers. Bracers, even if you're not going to keep these for very long, and even if you're replacing them in tier 4, the bracers of the Green Fortress are really good. High stamina, good dodge, good defense, and you can put the defense rating enchant on them, 12 defense rating, which again is not too expensive, not too ridiculous to use. Weapon, the Sun Eater, honestly, there are a few other alternatives, but really you want to aim for this. The Sun Eater, which you get from Mechanar Heroic Final Boss, can be annoying, I admit, can be annoying to have to pick this up, but it's got 13 defense rating, it's got 19 dodge rating. There are some other weapons from Reputation from Fromlar Exalted as an example that might be easier to get than this. But yeah, the Sun Eater is a pretty good weapon. Shield, Azure Shield of Caldara from Badges. Best in slot, really. There is a worse version of this, basically the same kind of principles in terms of like stat distribution, what kind of stats you're going for. There is a worse version from a dungeon, but honestly, Azure Shield of Caldara is the best option. And finally, your ranged weapon. Now, here it's more of an example than anything else. It's Fitz Throwing Axe, right? And the reason I've chosen this is to highlight something that a lot of guides get wrong when it comes to the ranged weapon slot for a warrior. Now, the advantage here is that it has agility, it has hit rating. Hit rating is very important for you as a warrior tank, but the reason I've chosen this particular thrown weapon, it's not the stats, there are weapons with better stats out there. But the reason I've chosen this is to highlight something. You're going to want a weapon that improves your threat most of the time. Yeah, sure, you might use something for stamina when you need it on certain bosses, but mostly you'll want something with hit rating, something to help you out with your threat. Now, the reason I've chosen this weapon in particular is because it's thrown. The advantage with the thrown weapon is that you can pull faster. You don't have to wait to aim and shoot your bow, your gun, or your crossbow. You can just throw and it will go faster. So you'll end up doing dungeons faster, raids faster. You can pull things faster. You can do things faster. So that's the advantage of this particular weapon and the principle that should guide you when it comes to a thrown weapon in general. Now, with this gear, you should be able to tank pretty much any boss in tier 4, maybe even quite a good amount of tier 5. Obviously, weapon enchant, Mongoose, if you don't have that, get Crusader, all that kind of stuff. Stamina and shield, since I forgot to mention that. But yeah, this gear is fairly solid. I mean, keep in mind, like the warrior I have here has tier 5 gear. If I open it, like he has tier 5 gear, sure, there are things I could do to get more stamina on him and all that. And although the gear, this pre-raid best in slot gear, obviously has less armor, has less avoidance, all that kind of stuff, it only has 70 less stamina. That's what, 1k less HP, so you'd have 14.4k or give or take HP with that around there. You'd have 14k HP unbuffed with that kind of gear. It's pretty good. You would have a good amount of survivability with this gear to be able to pretty much tackle any kind of boss in tier 4 or to do any dungeon on heroic in the game. For tier 4, you're looking at something like this. Warbringer Great Helm as a helmet piece, same enchant idea, but you do want to get this particular helmet. Sure, you can use the engineering one if you so desire, and there is also another one that drops. But this one is a fairly solid option because of the high block value that it has. It has 39 block value, so that will help you out with your threat. It has strength, agility, so it's a fairly solid choice for the most part. The 2-set and 4-set bonus of tier 4 is not too bad, but it's also not really great. You can live without the set bonus of tier 4 as a warrior tank. I'd say getting the 4-set can be a nice bonus, but whether or not you want to sacrifice other pieces for that, that's a different discussion. Gloves, tier 4 gloves. You can use the Maiden gloves if you so desire, if you are fine screwing over your Protection Paladin, who needs them far more than you do. But to be honest, the Warbringer hand guards, they're going to boost your threat. They don't have bad stats. They have nice defense, nice parry rating. So they're useful enough to use, even though you are losing on the Gem Sockets belt. Belt from Morose, Crimson Girdle of the Indomitable, 16 strength, 36 stamina. Basically, more or less the same belt you were using before, just better stats across the board. Neck, Barbed Choker of Discipline from Maiden of Virtue, close to 40 stamina, high dodge, high defense. So you might end up losing on the defense rating, but obviously you get stamina and you're getting dodge. Shoulders, Warbringer shoulder guards. This should probably be your priority, getting the shoulders quickly, because they're just a nice benefit. You might end up losing on defense compared to other options, but you do get that ridiculous amount of 26 dodge rating. And of course you have strength, agility, and high stamina on these, so very useful. Pants, Rin Dynasty Greaves from Curator, strength, stamina, free gem sockets. These are best in slot for pure survivability. They're best in slot until tier 6, basically, until you get into the Black Temple. Very powerful. If you're using other pants, you're using them because of threat. I don't think getting a Warbringer is worth it, but getting the tier 5 pants is certainly a worthy option versus these. But you'll probably want to have these for just those situations where you're going to need extra survivability. Boots, Battle Scar boots from the chess event and Karazhan. 2 gem sockets, good enough stamina, good enough strength, defense rating, and parry. Minor speed and stamina on these, as you should on pretty much all of your boots. Devil Shark Cape, yes, you keep this in tier 4. You don't really replace it. I mean, there are some other options if you care about armor, for instance, or higher stamina, but I think Devil Shark is just the best choice for threat, overall survivability, when you consider the avoidance it gives, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, Devil Shark is a really good cloak in general. Chess piece, Warbringer's chest guard. Alternatively, and this is where you start consider the cost of things. Alternatively, you can get blacksmithing, the armor smithing chest. If you so desire, you can use it there. Now, personally, I don't have it here because, hey, the 4 set, I can get the 4 set with the chest, the shoulders, the helm, the gloves. I can get the 4 set, so why not? Yes, the blacksmithing helmet is better, but I mean, how much of a difference it makes versus this? Probably not as much when you're looking at having 4 set. Just keep in mind, only when it's the discussion of 4 set. So once you get into tier 5, once you lose that 4 set, then yeah, the blacksmithing chest ends up being better. But until then, really, this is a solid enough choice. Now, if you're struggling to get it from Macferidon, there is a chest as well from Nightbane and Karazhan that you can look at. The Panzer Fan that you can go for. Rings stay the same, though there are obviously some survivability options. For Trinket, Romulus Poison Vial, because of the hit rating, it's quite good. 35 hit rating, and your melee and range attacks have a chance to inject poison on your target. The effect here is not so relevant. The hit rating, however, is to improve your threat. Second Trinket, Goblin Rocket Launcher. For pure survivability, you'd be using 2 Goblin Rocket Launchers, and this is and once you're looking at this kind of level of gear, you really should have both of them for certain fights. But for situations where you might need extra threat, Romulus Poison Vial from the Opera event from Romeo and Julieta is very useful. Bracers, Van Bracers of Courage. These are better than Green Fortress from the perspective of a threat, though of course that gem socket is also useful. You'll end up with a bit higher stamina, very free block value, but you're losing dodge rating compared to Green Fortress weapon. King's Defender from the chess event. Good armor. The armor bonus is certainly welcome. So is the hit rating. The 17 hit rating, the 13 defense. Pretty solid weapon all around. There are some pure threat options that you could look at, but as a tank, this is really good for tier 4. Shield, Aldori Legacy Defender from Gruul. I actually forgot to put a gem in this. So yeah, 12 stamina gem in this. Now, as a warrior, you want to get this, like say that you're the main warrior tank in your guild, you want to get this over, say, a prop paladin, because you both will benefit, obviously, from a survivability standpoint versus any other shield in the game until tier 6, but you also benefit more as a warrior because of the hit rating. Now, there are some warriors who will argue that block value is more important. I think personally that going for hit rating is the wiser decision than block value. Again, some people think block value is worth it more, so maybe they look at the Nightbane shield. I think Aldori is just a better option. And weapon, yeah, you'd be sticking with something like like Fitz's throwing axe, just because the hit rating is very nice on this. There is a weapon from Gruul that has high stamina if you're interested in that, but this is a really solid threat option. And that's how you look in Tier 4. Compared to Tier 5, compared to the Tier 5 gear I have equipped, and again, this character is not best in slot Tier 5 equipped, but compared to the Tier 5 gear I have equipped, it's only 36 less stamina. So it's very solid survivability here, though you've already started to some degree to trade away survivability for the sake of threat. Of course, especially on this one trinket. I mean, if I put a goblin rocket launcher here, I end up with more survivability than I currently have equipped right here on this character. So it's very, very useful. Gear set like this for Tier 4. This is what I'd aim for if I was playing a warrior or something similar to this. Some of these pieces are difficult. The neck, the belt, the pants can be hard to get. I wouldn't say the boots, to be honest. The boots are not so difficult. The shield, of course, is. Weapon, depends, really. I don't think so. Like, I think King's Defender has dropped often enough. I mean, it's not like you're going to have them drop like candy, but it's also not going to be a situation where you spend half a year and you don't get any, which could be the case for the Aldori Legacy Defender, in which case the alternative is the Nightbane Shield. So yeah, you make do with what you have, right? Finally, we get to Tier 5. Over here, I have equipped the Tier 5 helmet, gloves, shoulders, and pants. Now, from my perspective, regardless of the situation, you'd probably want to have the helmet, the shoulders, and even the gloves equipped. Yes, the gloves, there are some better options from a pure survivability standpoint. But to be quite frank, you want the force set bonus. It is incredible. You have a chance each time you are hit to gain 200 haste rating. So whenever you're tanking multiple mobs in particular, this is an incredible set bonus. It vastly increases your threat. And as a protection warrior, you gain an enormous benefit from having force set Tier 5. Probably the best set bonus for any class, really, or one of the best set bonuses for any class in the game. It is bloody ridiculous. So getting it is a priority versus the individual stats of these items. So these items are also pretty good. The helmet is actually, from my perspective, better than the Tier 6 one, just like on an individual item level from a survivability standpoint. The shoulders, they do have block value, so they're not quite as great because they don't have avoidance. They do have good enough defense rating, though. Gloves, yeah, they're not great. That shield block rating is not great, but the block value is pretty nice from a threat standpoint. Pants operate on the same level. The Karazhan pants are better for pure survivability. As for the chest, you always have to consider that for the chest. Quite a few people want the Tier 5 chest piece, and it drops from Kael'thas, who isn't exactly the easiest guy to get to, and you might not do him a lot of the time. So if you can get force set without the chest, then you should be happy with that. If you can get the chest, consider that an optional bonus. Anyway, so I have these Tier 5 pieces: helmet, gloves, pants, shoulders. The neck is the same one as Karazhan. The belt is Girdle of the Immovable from Leofrost the Blind in Serpent Shrine Caverns. Like with the Morose belt, it can be an absolute nightmare to get this to drop. You can do the whole damn dungeon for half a year and only seal 1 or 2, so don't necessarily count on it. I mean, hell, this particular character over here wasn't able to actually get a belt replacement at all, so he was still using Girdle of the Immovable. Wonderful situation, really. Boots, if you see them, Boots of the Resilient, this is just purely for stamina armor. They drop from Solarian. They have 51 stamina. They have a ridiculous amount of armor. They have shield block rating and defense rating. They're pretty good. Though, to be honest, I think they're better for a Prot Paladin if I'm gonna make that estimate. But, I mean, they're good for you as well, just from a pure stamina armor perspective. The Prot Paladin, of course, would benefit from that shield block rating as well. Just keep that in mind. Cloak, Devil Shark Cape. Keep that. And although there is an option of a cloak from Alar, you would lose the block value. You would gain dodge, you'd gain defense, you'd gain more stamina, but you would lose the block value. So from a pure threat standpoint, you're probably just going to want to keep, you're probably just going to use Devil Shark Cape, or who knows, maybe even get the DPS cloak with hit on it if you're interested in that. But obviously, there is a limit to how much you want to trade in terms of survivability for that. especially when thinking about something like the chess piece. Now, yes, you can use tier 4, you can use tier 5, or you can min-max and go blacksmithing and get the Bulwark of Ancient Kings. Now, I didn't include it on the tier 4 best in slot list, the tier 4 version of it, because it's obviously ridiculously expensive to get it. And gold is not necessarily the easiest thing in the world to get as a Proud Warrior when you're gearing up in pre-raid or tier 4. But once you do have the gold, once you have the time for it, getting this, if you're a blacksmith, if you're an armor smith, is very worth it. It has high stamina, high strength, critical strike rating, very high hit, a good amount of hit rating, and it has an unused effect that increases your HP by 1500 and strength by 150 for 15 seconds. Now, the cooldown on this is ridiculous, so you're probably only going to use it, 4 or 5 times, 8 times at most in a 4-hour raid, right? But it is very much worth it to have it. Even if you're going to use the cooldown sparingly, the stat bonus is the critical strike, and the hit rating is worth it. Yes, you do there's a lot of defense rating, all that kind of stuff, you lose agility, but it is a net benefit from a threat perspective and a survivability perspective. Ring-wise, Ring of Sundered Souls. This is from Morgrim Tidewalker. It's basically a survivability option from tier 5 that you can get. But honestly, most of the time, you're probably just going to want to use the Crystal Band of Valor most of the time, just because of the hit rating it has. I mean, it's good enough, but yeah, you can get this as well if you want to use it. Though stick with Shapeshifter's Signet, you want to use that as well. Trinket-wise, what can change here, depending on how fortunate you are, you can get Solarian Sapphire. This is, for DPS warriors, I think this is best in slot, or close to best in slot, until the end of the game or Sunwell Plateau. This thing is bloody ridiculous. So you get 30 stamina, but you also get 70 attack power bonus on your battle shout. This is bloody amazing. Now, generally, DPS warriors will want to get this, but don't shy away from taking it either. Second trinket, Romulus Poison Vial, of course, keeping up the hit rating, obviously using Rocket Launcher if you need more survivability. Bracers, same as before, the Karazhan ones. Eldori Legacy Defender, that stays the same. Mallet of the Tides, this is from Lurker Below. Can be rare, can be a nice bonus. Defense rating and expertise, fairly solid bonus. Alternatively, what you can use as a warrior is this, the Fang of Vosh. It's a fairly solid option in its own right with high expertise, decent enough stamina, and pretty solid attack power there. Attack power bonus for just a pure threat option. And as for range slot, Serpent Shrine Shuriken. This one is great. 40 stamina, so it's not too bad from a survivability standpoint, but you also get obviously the hit rating plus 12 and 20 critical strike rating. And you end up with 850 stamina, so it's very close to what I have equipped, so 15.4k HP unbuffed. You get quite a bit of dodge rating, hit rating, expertise, all of this. So you'll be doing a lot of threat, and you'll have a high degree of survivability with this kind of gear. Obviously, you can change your trinkets around if you so desire, like get the goblin, get 2 goblin rocket launchers, or at least 1 goblin rocket launcher combined with Solarian Sapphire. Would you use Battle Shout? I mean, depends on the boss, depends on to what degree do you need survivability over threat. I mean, once you're looking at gear like this, you're really starting to worry about threat more than survivability. With this kind of gear, you can tank all the way to Sunwell Plateau, no bloody problems, no serious problems. So you can have a really high amount of HP, high amount of armor, survivability, and good threat with this kind of gear. And that's all. Costin here on Serious Gaming signing out. Thank you all for watching. Stay tuned for more. If there is interest, I'll do a full proper Protection Warrior guide. I'll do a gearing guide for Tier 6 and Sunwell Plateau if people are interested, not just for this class respect, but for others as well. But yeah, stay tuned.